候変動対策についてアイルランドはどのような取り組みを行っていますか？
Yeah, good question. So domestically, Ireland has introduced legislation that commits to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by more than a half by 2030, and also to achieving net zero by 2050. And it's really important to highlight that these targets are set in law and that they're binding. And in terms of the different work that's underway to achieve those targets, when we talk about transport, we're investing in improving infrastructure to support walking, cycling, public transport. We're changing the way that we heat our homes by supporting people in installing heat pumps that will improve insulation and heat efficiency. And we're also investing in forestry and restoring and re-wetting boglands. But I think I'd like to maybe just expand on one really important area. Ireland has some of the most ambitious targets in the world when it comes to renewable electricity. Today, 40% of Ireland's electricity comes from renewable sources, onshore wind and solar. By 2030, it will be 80%. And as you may know, Ireland is a very small island located at the edge of Western Europe, facing out over the Atlantic Ocean. And the Irish coast is actually one of the most energy productive in the world. So Ireland has very ambitious targets in relation to offshore wind also. By 2040, we hope to have 30 gigawatts of energy from offshore wind, and that will see Ireland play a really important role in terms of Europe's shared energy future.
EU と日本は気候変動対策においてどのような協力ができるでしょうか？
Again, a great question. Like, climate action is such an important area. Climate change is a global issue. It's one that requires shared solution and close cooperation. At the multilateral level, the EU is working quite closely with Japan through forums like the UNFCCC, also the G7, and then also through COP. And it'll be important that the EU and Japan work closely together to achieve a successful outcome at COP in Baku later this year. Bilaterally, EU and Japan are working well together. You look at the EU-Japan Green Alliance, there's deepening cooperation when it comes to carbon storage, carbon pricing and markets, climate modelling, and then also hydrogen, which is another area where there's improved and deepened information exchange, which is good to see.
EU の気候変動に関する意思決定の特徴は何だと思いますか？
So I suppose when you consider the European Union, it's important to remember that there are 27 member states. There's a real diversity of interests and strengths and different local contexts. And I think one of the defining aspects of decision making at the EU level when it comes to climate policy is the ability to build consensus. So Europe is very much on, we have a shared destination in terms of what we want to achieve with our climate action. But there's flexibility and differentiation then in how member states are implementing that journey. But yeah, consensus building, the ability to listen to others, to understand the varied perspectives, and to work together to achieve common goals.
2024年の模擬 EU で欧州委員会を代表します。何かアドバイスをいただけますか？
Yeah, I suppose I'd have a couple of points again. When you think of the diversity of views within the European Union, it's really important to make the effort to understand the different backgrounds and perspectives. As the Irish representative, you'll have clear goals, clear targets. It's important that you can communicate those clearly, but also that you listen and understand the other perspectives around the table. And I think lastly, I'd say enjoy yourselves. It's really important to have fun. You're going to meet a lot of new people who have shared interests and shared passions. So please make the most of that.